Last week we covered, the Texas law and the Supreme Court, and I was talking about the Trump Supreme Court doing this. And through the grapevine, it kind of got back to me, or actually, it got back to me, and because I was watching it, I was kind of accused of that. It was felt that I should say that Democrats were somewhat involved in stacking the court, and I'm good. And I was referred. I believe I was called I was accused of suffering from TDS, which is Trump Derangement Syndrome, and I want to address both these issues right now. And the first one is Trump stacked the court. He put 3 conservative people on the court. One of them, who is I think, a crazy woman. I think she's a religious fundamentalist, and I think she's off. That's my personal opinion. You may disagree. But, we've got a court that is not going to address the problems that really need to be addressed. And this is the legacy of Trump, and as far as TDS goes, TDS is a term that's used by right-wing people to, and they say it to people who dislike Trump, claiming that they're irrational, that you just hate them. Your criticism of Trump was not rational. And by the way, Trump's under the bridge now, and I really wouldn't want to talk about him today, except that I'm addressing this issue of being referred to as somebody who's suffered from TDS. Now, I've been accused of this by conservative people, so that's why it kind of gets under my skin a little bit. And my personal position is that I've known about Trump for a really long time, and the man has always represented values that I disagree with. He as a young man, he basically had the image of a selfish frat boy, and somebody who was a bully, and somebody who just would walk right all over people. And that's something. And one particular thing I remember really early on is he put out some weird press release, and he was trying to act like a hippie, or trying to profess counterculture values, which it didn't work, and he gave it up right away. But it told me how dishonest the man was right away. And so I don't like him. I haven't liked him for decades, and but that does not affect my view about what he did. What he did is what he did, and he represents the worst values America has. And that's enough of that. I've returned to it now.
Yeah, the question to me is more: did the accusation is that Democrats had something to do with these appointments, and I don't see it at all that way. I think they really didn't have any choices in the matter. Nobody asked them. They didn't have the majority. They were just kind of bystanders for that. Unfortunately, they couldn't do much to prevent it, and that's a shame that the system works that way. But it's but the nomination of judges is a political one, and that is something that I wish could be changed, as well as the term limits.
Yeah, and it's particularly relevant to what's going on right now with the Texas law, because with what's going on with the abortion issue is we very clearly have a distinction between Republicans and Democrats. It's one of the sharpest distinctions between the two. I mean, in many ways, there aren't any difference between Republicans and Democrats in America. They both represent capitalist interests. They're both, it's like talking about the difference between Frenchmen and Spaniards in some ways. But there are differences. And one of the sharpest ones is in terms of women's rights. And Republicans are not about women's rights. They aren't. And Democrats are. So it's interesting that that criticism should have been leveled under the current atmosphere.
And let me say something about the actual what transpired with regards to Texas, and that is that the Supreme Court has refused to listen to arguments and upheld in practice upheld the Texas anti-abortion law by doing so. They did not comment on the law's validity, on its justification or anything. They just refused to take it up, and by doing so, and basically postponed it indefinitely. They said that if people bring specific lawsuits down the line, they may pick it up, they may discuss it, but they refused to do so. And by not addressing it and letting that law come into effect, they have achieved the conservatives have achieved what they wanted. They wanted to create a chilling factor and start destroying the entire organization around that supports abortions in Texas, and that's happening. It's falling apart. By the time they will be forced to remove that law, a lot of damages in practice on the ground is going to happen. So that is really, even if the Supreme Court does strike it down at some point, the damage is nevertheless happening. And that brings me to the question, is this a Supreme Court that is essentially activist? We remember that the conservatives were complaining about Sotomayor and other liberal judges that they were being activist. And in fact, this is exactly where the court is right now. They're being activists. They're prohibiting the discussion of laws based on its political and on its political merit, on its political leaning.
Well, they're discussing it behind closed doors. That's they're activists in the sense that they're not acting the way a Supreme Court should. Right. Normally through the decades, the American Supreme Court, they argue, they write things up, and it's all public, and it's referred to, and it's talked about. And what's happened is particularly under the Trump administration, and only 8 times previously, but many times under the Trump administration, the use of the Shadow Docket. And what it is, it's a legal procedure where the Supreme Court can make a ruling without really discussing anything. And it's meant for emergency relief so that they can step in and render a judgment when a lower court is stuck. And the procedure is now being abused, and it's to forward conservative interests. And so, they're being activists, but not in a way I think I take the word to be, not in a good way.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that's pretty much it. It is a huge issue for us, and I think that if you were a conservative and concerned about judges becoming activists, you should not change your position now because it's in your favor. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, play that video. It's really short. It's only about 10 seconds long.
The most nascent expression of society. There have to be people who are willing to not abuse the system.
And the system is being abused by the Shadow Docket.
Yep.
Where oral arguments don't have to be made.
And my suspicion is that some of those judges, the reason they didn't want to hear it is because they probably know that they would have to come to a conclusion that would oppose that law. That's my hope that that's the case, and I presume that it is, because otherwise they probably would listen to it and make and basically put it into effect as a Supreme Court ruling. But
yeah, well, you know, the Supreme Court can make rulings, but they can be, yeah, they can be challenged a little bit, you know. So the Biden administration this week, you know, has strongly pushed back, and we're going to be seeing another video real quick here. Now, this one's like 6 minutes. So what Amos is going to do is he's going to play the first part. Maybe you might want to jump ahead in a little bit just to show us what's in there, because I will put the whole thing in just to make the point that did I say Obama when I meant Biden again? You know, I did that 2 weeks ago. Damn, I got to stop that. People think I've lost it or something. No, Biden. So, you know, this is Merrik Garland, and he's the what is he, Amos? He's the
Department of he's
the chief
attorney.
Yeah, Attorney General. That's right. Yeah, right. So this is our Attorney General, and he like I say, this is a long video because what's happening is that the Supreme Court's being challenged, and so they have to explain themselves now because their decision is runs counter to it. Basically is unconstitutional. So the Supreme Court, Merrick Garland's going to put out that the Supreme Court is acting unconstitutionally, and they're going to have to explain themselves. I don't know the legal details. It'd be nice to know more about it, but go ahead and start a little of this, Amos, and do what you want with this video.
We want to take you now to the Justice Department, where Attorney General Merrick Garland and other DOJ officials are speaking about a lawsuit against Texas over the state's new restrictive abortion law. Let's listen.
Complaint. Its basis is as follows. SB 8 bans nearly all abortions in the state after 6 weeks of pregnancy, before many women even know they are pregnant, and months before a pregnancy is viable. It does so even in cases of rape, sexual abuse, or incest. And it further prohibits any effort to aid the doctors who provide pre-viability abortions or the women who seek them. The act is clearly unconstitutional under long-standing Supreme Court precedent. Those precedents hold, in the words of Planned Parenthood versus Casey, that, quote, regardless of whether exceptions are made for particular circumstances, a state may not prohibit any woman from making the ultimate decision to terminate her pregnancy before viability. Texas does not dispute that its statute violates Supreme Court precedent. Instead, the statute includes an unprecedented scheme to, in the Chief Justice's words, quote, insulate the state from responsibility, close quote. It does not rely on the state's executive branch to enforce the law, as is the norm in Texas and everywhere else. Rather, the statute deputizes all private citizens without any showing of personal connection or injury to serve as bounty hunters, authorized to recover at least $10,000 per claim from individuals who facilitate a woman's exercise of her constitutional rights. The obvious and expressly acknowledged intention of this statutory scheme is to prevent women from exercising their constitutional rights by thwarting judicial review for as long as possible. Thus far, the law has had its intended effect. Because the statute makes it too risky for an abortion clinic to stay open, abortion providers have ceased providing services. This leaves women in Texas unable to exercise their constitutional rights and unable to obtain judicial review at the very moment they need it. This kind of scheme to nullify the Constitution of the United States is one that all Americans, whatever their politics or party, should fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that very powerful.
It is, and it's kind of shameful that the Attorney General has to step in and do the Supreme Court's work. And it's to me, the fact that the Supreme Court kind of rejected this and upheld the law is a callous behavior on the part of the Supreme Court. Even if they would have officially agreed with it, it's callous to just not talk about it and not rule on it when people's lives are affected in the meantime. So shame on them. It's very incorrect. And also to mention that Justice Breyer wrote an official dissent because of that.
Yeah, people are suffering right out of the gate.